Let's get into the Pintail numbers real quick. Will they ever change? What are we waiting to see? Because we got a lot of Pintails here. It sounds like you got a lot. When are they going to go up?
I wish I had a good answer. Unfortunately, it's reliant upon the federal government, which takes
we know
takes time and takes process, right? And so they're currently in the process. They've formed like a bunch of these working groups, within the flyways, and the steps are starting. The problem is that with the COVID restrictions, they weren't able to fly the survey last year, and it's looking like they might not fly the survey again this year. So it's going to be really hard to change any regulations without any current data. I would imagine not this next season, but I would really, really hope to see some kind of change coming in the next duck season, not the one coming up and in 2 seasons from now.
2022, 23 season.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, and I'm 53 years old, we could shoot 10 pintails a day.
You're on the point system.
Yep.
100-point system. We could shoot 10 a day. I don't remember ever shooting 30 pintails in a day. I remember some 40 and 50 mallard hunts, but I don't ever remember shooting 30 pintails, but we could.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I mean, like California, man, it's the wintering ground for pintail. I think the 30% of the continent's pintail winter here in California, which is, it's insane amount of birds.
And y'all are on one?
And,
y'all are on one also?
Yeah, we're on one pintail, yeah. And so, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, it's, the numbers were up to like 6 million, I think, in the 70s. And then we kind of had the droughts of the 80s, and all bird populations kind of dipped down. Pintail dipped down too. And then we had water come back in the 90s, and all other dabbling ducks went up except for pintail, right? And a lot of that's just the habitat practice that they're doing up in Canada now. They're doing, we call it no-till farming. So after they harvest the field, they just go through and they leave all the stubble up. Well, that stubble is attractive to pintail, so they go try and nest in there. And then in the springtime, that farmer comes back and mows his field down, and all those eggs get lost in the fields. And so, we've had restrictive limits on pintail for 25 years now, and their population has more or less stayed the same, right? It's not doing any big fluctuations. So a lot of that's based off habitat in the nesting area, and so a lot of the current research that's out there is suggesting that we can have a lot higher harvest on pintail, and the population is not going to be affected. So all that stuff's on the table now. They're looking at it, and I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely, we got to get at least a year of current survey and data just to kind of get back on track with catching the trends and stuff. But 2 years, I think we'll see some changes. And hopefully it'll go up. I'm hoping it'll go up to 3. And then we'll do that for maybe 4 or 5 years and see if anything changes. That's kind of how this adaptive harvest management works, right? You're supposed to do certain things at a slow pace and see if it's affecting anything. And the restricted pintail seasons haven't done much to bring the population back, right? So let's, especially when, like I said earlier, if we've got skewed sex ratios, we could easily harvest more Drake pintail. And I don't know how it is in Texas, but usually, early October, it's pretty hard to tell the drakes from the females because they're still in, their alternate plumage and they're not in their breeding plumage yet. But November, December, November, definitely they start coloring out. And it's real easy to tell drakes from hens. So having a 3 drake, 1 hen, limit could be real possible in the future. I'd imagine.
Biologist with a lot of common sense at hunts. Did you hear that, Andy?
Yeah. And you would figure that would be that would be the norm in your industry. But I don't know if so many guys are just set in their ways, and I don't think, like you said, I think it all goes back to the guys don't hunt. I think most biologists don't hunt.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that don't hunt, and unfortunately, like everything else, there's a lot of egos involved too,
right.
So just like anything, you got to mitigate all that stuff.
So a couple years ago, we were at 2 pintails.
We were 2 years ago.
What happened to what happened? What did the numbers do? Why did they go back down?
So they basically, the way it works is they have a matrix, and when the numbers fall within a section of that matrix is when it would shift from 2 to 1. And so we were at 2 for a while, and then it fell into the 1 category. and that's just the current model that they have. And so I mean, the whole goal is to revise the model with updated data and basically just allow a higher harvest on pintail. And I think it'll happen. We got to just give it
That
time.
was also
But there's definitely pushback too on the other side. Like folks are like, this population's not at its long-term average. Like, you can't increase the harvest, and so there's definitely pushback. But I mean, if you look at some of the new data that out there, there's a master student from what's it called, Reno University, Nevada, Reno. That, I mean, his project's insane, and he's basically like going through the modeling and like showing how the model is not predicting how they expect it to predict. And a lot of that information, is out there, and hopefully they'll see it and look at it and hopefully change some things. So
a lot of that too, the year they done the change was when Dakota's flooded real bad. And so a lot of birds nested in North Dakota and South Dakota that didn't get counted. That's when it
right. And what happens
changed.
too is traditionally when the pintail shift farther north, they're not as successful nesting. And so when you have either drier years or whatever, when the birds actually nest farther north, they're not as successful. So that also has a lot to go into that model that they predict the population. So